Today I want to talk about a piece of gear that I wish I had years and years ago, and one that I think that you should consider. I just recently stopped shooting events like weddings, and it's been maybe about 7 years since I've shot a micro-budget short film, but this piece of gear would have been a pivotal part of those productions. Today, let's talk about the OC Megamon 15-inch monitor.
The OC Megamon15 monitor has a 15.4-inch screen. It's listed as 10-bit, although I've seen it mentioned that this is actually 8-bit with frame rate control, and this is almost a distinction without a difference. Some other specs that you might be interested in are that it has a 178-degree viewing angle, 1000 nits of brightness, which is almost as bright or in some cases brighter than some smartphones, a 1450:1 contrast ratio, and a resolution of 1920 by 1080. It has 100% of the Rec 709 color gamut, and if you have the hardware, this monitor can be color calibrated. A headphone port, a USB port for firmware updates, a speaker if you want to monitor sound that way, built-in LUTs, and the typical focus tools that you know and love, such as peaking and waveforms, and even audio tools. So let's take a look. Here we have the case that everything comes in. You'll notice that we have these zippers on the back which give us easy access to the back of the monitor itself. More on how this can be used when mounting the monitor to a stand in a little bit. The monitor can be powered by a V-mount battery, which is how I use it, or you can also use AC power if that's available to you, so that the monitor can be used for extended periods of time. One of the ways that you can use this monitor is to mount the included feet so that you can sit it on a workbench or a table or whatever flat surface you have available. The only thing that you have to keep in mind is that these feet get screwed on, so in order for you to use them or to take them back off to put the monitor back into the bag, make sure that you have a screwdriver handy. At the top of the monitor, there's a handle that makes carrying it extremely easy, and of course keeps your hands off the side or maybe even the front of the monitor so you're not putting any smudges there. On the back we have the video ports, including 2 SDI in, an HDMI, and a cheese plate up top so you can mount accessories to it. What I suggest using that for and what I use it for is mounting a wireless video receiver for obvious reasons. This makes the whole setup extremely portable, especially when you're using a V-mount battery. As I mentioned before, this monitor has a wide viewing angle. As you can see here, there doesn't appear to be any color issues, light bleed, or drop in contrast as you move around to and from the side. The case that the monitor comes in also doubles as a sunshade for outdoor use. Easy to set up and break down. A nice feature that OC included is a piece of material that has Velcro at the end, which allows the back to be lifted up as opposed to hanging straight down. The only things that I would keep in mind is removing the feet, as I mentioned earlier, and removing anything from the storage that is being held up by the Velcro.
So let's talk about the pros and cons. I'll start with the pros and then we'll talk about the cons. One of the pros has to do with the price. Now you may initially look at the price and say that it's potentially more expensive than a lens that you've been interested in. But what you have to do is compare this against other comparable monitors, which are probably 3, 4, 5 times the price. The fact that this monitor can be calibrated is another pro. You may look at this as just a viewing monitor, which is essentially what it is, but if you have a paying client on site or a director, you definitely want to show them an accurate image and not give them any reason for concern as to why the image doesn't look right. Some may view that sunshade as a gimmick, but once you're outside, it's something that you'll really appreciate, and it's actually well implemented in this case. I've seen smaller monitors by other companies that have sunshades that are a little more awkward to use or just aren't as implemented as well as this one is.
To access the menu, press the OK button next to the power button on the right side under the screen. To the left of those are your navigation arrows. First menu shows items such as the video input resolution and type, the gamma, and the color temp. Next menu is the input config screen and lets you adjust the color range if you need to. Next menu is the color management menu. Here you can see I have a LUT applied because I am sending my vlog footage from my Panasonic S5. In the next menu, user config, you can set user presets up to 4, and here you can set what the 4 function buttons do on the left of the navigation buttons. More on this in a few. Next window is the audio options. You have a menu for markers, another one for all of your scope options such as waveform type. Next window has focus peaking and zebras, and the last is where you can perform a firmware update. The only issue with navigating the menus is how you navigate them. As you'll notice here, we have to press the arrows in order to get to the setting that we want to change. Once there, you can use the arrows to change what you need to, but you also need to hit the OK button to save it before navigating back. My suggestion is to set up your 4 most used settings and have them accessible through one of the 4 function buttons. For example, here on the first function button on the left, I have the false color monitor tool to allow us to see the different luma levels. Function 2 shows our waveform options, including an RGB parade. The third function is where I have the zebra tool set up so I can see which parts of the footage are overexposed. And yes, I did adjust the exposure on the camera to show this in this case. And finally, under the fourth function button, I have it set where I can toggle the LUT on and off.
One of the cons that I've seen listed on YouTube videos that have come out before mine has to do with the fact that the feet have to be mounted. You have to unscrew them and screw them, and then once they're mounted onto the monitor, it won't fit back into the bag. But in my opinion, that's a very specific use case where you want to actually use the feet and mount it on a table. I would say if you have access to a light stand or a C-stand, I would much prefer to use that than to set it up somewhere. To be fair, unscrewing and screwing 4 screws isn't that time intensive or physically demanding. So depending on how you intend to use the monitor, that may or may not be something that you want to take into consideration. Another potential con that people may point out is that this is only a 1080p monitor, and I say 1080p in air quotes, but with a lot of the video transmitters, you can only transmit in 1080p. But I'm not saying that only to justify the resolution. The image is very sharp and you can get critical focus, especially if you're using the focus tools. So what I'm saying is it will receive a 4K image, but you don't have to worry about the monitor itself being 1080p because it's still going to be a sharp image. With cameras the way they are these days, including things such as zebras, is it a little bit redundant for a monitor to also have zebras? Potentially. But the thing that you have to keep in mind is, would you rather look at the back of your camera screen, which is probably only about 3 inches, or look at a 15-inch monitor where you could potentially see something that you may have missed on the smaller screen? Not only that, but if you're behind the camera, you may be on set with other team members, and to have them have the ability to have things like zebras or waveforms is an added bonus. So is this monitor for you? Of course, only you can make that decision. If you're just making YouTube videos, if you're just starting out and you're just doing it for fun right now, you don't necessarily need to invest in something like this. But if YouTube is slowly becoming your career, or maybe you work on short films, I can highly recommend that you get this monitor. Quick ethics note, I was provided this monitor for review, but I was not told what to say. I was not required to show them the video before I'm releasing it, and I was not paid for this review. So anything that I'm telling you right now is my genuine opinion. Thanks for watching. If you're interested in picking up this monitor, there will be links in the description below. If you have any questions about the monitor that I can answer, leave them in the comment section below, and I'll see you in another video.